everybody, Backyard Bullion here. I hope you're all having a fantastic weekend wherever you may be in this big wide world, especially if you're in the US and enjoying the 4th of July week and now subsequent weekend. Now today's video is going to be a little bit of an update on all things Backyard Bullion. If you watched yesterday's video, you'll know that the shop is now back online and we're back and we are now trading once again. And today we're going to summarize a little bit about some of the trials and tribulations that we've been going through in that whole period of this last sort of 3 or 4 months of becoming VAT registered and then coming off the VAT register. And in conjunction, I thought I'd share as well some of the absolute ridiculousness of doing business here in the United Kingdom, because I really do have even more sympathy now for any small business owner out there who is running their own business and struggling and trying to make ends meet. It is not easy at all, and I thought I'd share some of my thoughts and opinions on that today. So hopefully it'll be kind of an interesting video and a little bit of an update as well. We've got some cool shiny things on the table here to look at, as well as my ongoing antiquing experiment for natural toning experiment for these glorious silver shot nuggets, or as somebody once called them, silver shot poos. They do look a little bit like something that the dog has left on the pavement. But anyway, let's get to the topic at hand, which is first of all, as it relates to Backyard Bullion. So this year, 2019, it's been a topsy-turvy year as regards Backyard Bullion. Now, in terms of the business, we've been doing exceptionally well and growing, and that's part of the problem, because one of the big issues in the UK is VAT on silver. I've talked about VAT on silver in my in my time here on YouTube many times before. The nuts and bolts of it is, if you are selling something made of silver in the UK, it needs to be VATed. It needs to have sales tax of 20% attached onto it. However, if you are a small business in the UK, you don't have to register for VAT unless your business's turnover is over 85,000. That's important to remember, that it's turnover, not profit. If I was making £85,000 a year profit, I probably wouldn't be moaning quite so much about this system. So the point is, though, that we grew and grew and grew over this last sort of 12 months. And that's a rolling 12-month turnover, by the way. That's not just in a specific year or tax year. That is in a 12-month rolling year as well. So we grew and grew and grew, and we got to the point where it was starting to become very evident that we were going to breach that threshold. So we registered for VAT, and the amount of stress and worry and strain that I went through personally, and I know Mrs. Backyard Bullion went through as well, over that month period that we were looking like we were going to have to, and indeed we were going to have to register, and then we eventually did. It was very stressful. So from that perspective, I really sympathise with businesses who are growing, who, is dealing with a busy business. Ultimately, we were a very busy business, and we were then having to grapple with all of these really new things that we didn't know much about. And eventually we did register for VAT, and then that has its own consequences in that we then have to charge sales tax for our customers, certainly in the EU. It's not so much a problem for US customers, but the main deal is that our prices had to go up. And you may have seen a couple of months ago, we uploaded a video talking, Mrs. Backyard Bullion and I were there talking about the price increase and what that means and the update for us. And this is the continuation of that. We have decided to deregister from VAT. Now, a lot of you out there that I've talked to, say on the Silver Forum about this, have expressed concern that that means that things aren't going so well for Backyard Bullion. Well, we are and have been as busy as ever in this last 3 months, and even with the sort of price increases, that was really humbling to see, and a lot of people were still happy to pay the high prices, because I accept that we are already an expensive product, and for having it go up 10% even more was a concern for us, whether or not it would be sustainable. And to a certain extent it put some people off, but to another extent it didn't, and that was really humbling to see. However, with VAT registration comes so much admin, it's ridiculous. And I, for basically the better part of April and May, was basically sat at home doing accounts, doing bookkeeping, making sure that all of my invoices were in order, making sure that everything was, kept up to date, so that if there was a situation where the tax authority, HMRC, were to either knock on my door or write to me and say that I needed to do a compliance check, or all of these type of things. I was maybe a little bit over worried, but I guess that's part of the problem, because I was really worried and stressed about it, that we'd get something wrong and we would then be, at fault. And I've always said, doing this business, that I want it to be fun, I want it to be sustainable, and I want to enjoy it. And I started to lose some of the passion for running the whole business, and that didn't take away from the silver. I really loved making everything and creating all of the things that we were doing, but it really was starting to take its toll on me personally. And I know then that had a follow-on effect to Mrs. Backyard Bullion as well, because I was getting more stressed, more worried, and taking more time away from the day life, because I was doing all the manufacturing, doing all the YouTube videos, doing everything that I would normally do in a day, but then sitting down of an afternoon into the evening, sometimes well up to sort of 9-10 o'clock at night, really just focusing on accounts, and it started to lose its magic. And I was very worried then that things were going to end up not being fun, and I would end up stopping altogether. So we had a break. We had a look. We got some advice from some accountants. We got some advice from some tax specialists, and the nuts and bolts of it was that we voluntarily decided to scale things down. So we've trimmed some of the types of projects that we're going to work on, and brought that in line such that in the next 12 months we will have a restricted amount of turnover, which will be underneath the threshold, and then that qualifies us to voluntarily deregister from VAT. So we are no longer registered for VAT. We don't have to charge it. So that's a really, really good piece of news for those of you who are in the United Kingdom and who are looking to purchase my hand-poured silver. You don't have to pay a lot extra. In fact, we've reduced our prices back down to their historic sort of levels where they were, 2018. So now is the best time ever to sort of purchase Backyard Bullion hand-poured silver in that sense. And that's really exciting. And it was very, very humbling to turn the website back on, well, it was technically turned on Monday last week, and we sort of officially turned it on and launched it yesterday in that video. And to have orders come through straight away, which was really exciting, and to be able to start trading again and start moving forward again was really, really good, and we're very, very humbled by that. So that's the update from us, Backyard Bullion wise. We are going to be going forward with business as usual. We'll be producing 100-gram silver foreign bars. We'll be producing some exciting exclusive projects for the European Mint, which is going to be really exciting. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but it will happen within the next couple of months. We've also got some really cool Backyard Bullion products in conjunction with Dad that's going to be released very soon, probably within the next couple of weeks. And then one very special one, which is going to be coming up at the end of Christmas. And we're very cautiously and carefully planning our sort of turnover thresholds and all of that. So the good news is, going forward, that there will be very limited runs of different products and projects. One of those, which I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, if you've been watching for all 8 minutes of the Backyard Bullion update, this is your reward. We are going to be at Christmas. This is one of the big ones that we're making at Christmas, making a giant planet Earth and moon set. Here they are together. I think they look really very cool indeed. And Dad's going to work on an incredible display board. That's all the sneak peek that we're going to give you right now. But those are incredibly cool. This big Earth, by the way, is like 13 ounces. It's just incredible to hold in the hand. But we'll share more on those as we go throughout the year, and those will be very limited because it's going to be very heavy. Of course, that then has a bit of a price tag to it, which adds up to the turnover quite significantly. So we will share more on that as we go throughout the year. Now, to the second part of today's video, which is now going to be a bit of a rant about doing business in the UK. So I've shared some of my experiences there and my trials and tribulations. Not just me as well, Mrs. Backyard Bullion as well has undergone quite a lot of stress and strain and worrying about me and my mental health, as it were. Because one of the whole points of me doing Backyard Bullion in the first place and really following it through was that I used to get horribly stressed with my old day job and was not a very nice person. So a lot of those old kind of annoyances and behaviours were coming back, which was not good. So we are in a really good fresh place. Now I've got this piece of paper out to list just the sheer number of ridiculous barriers that there are to doing business in the UK. And if anybody from any political party in the world is ever watching this, or in the UK I should say is watching this, please take note, because it really does stifle the small business and really hurts us. So the first thing, how am I going to do this with writing? So the first thing is that in the UK, if you are selling something, so if you just start out like I did as a hobbyist, everybody has a £1,000 revenue turnover threshold for trading, and you can trade, but that's turnover. If you have more than £1,000, then you have to register with HMRC for self-assessment tax. So that's a huge, it's not that much of a problem. I've been doing self-assessment tax for a long time, as I've been self-employed for a long time. It's not that taxing, but it's still another little barrier that you have to consider, and then you have to keep your accounts, your books, and do all of that. So just as a hobby, it's very, very challenging. The second thing, and this is kind of, I suppose, relating to the silver side of things, and I know there's a number of silver pourers out there who've seen other people making silver and wanted to get involved and do it and see it as a fun hobby to do and to sell and be a sustainable hobby. And that's how I saw it right at the start, until I kind of found out a little bit about hallmarking. So for those of you who have been following my channel for a while, the hand poured silver for a while, you know all about hallmarking. It's basically to guarantee that the silver is 909, but that is law. If you sell silver without a hallmark and you describe it as silver, you are breaking the law, and you can theoretically get fined an awful lot of money and even go to prison, which is very, very scary. Now, to become hallmark or to become registered with an assay office, you're talking upwards of maybe £300 just to become registered and get all of your stamps, and then the ongoing costs of, you're probably looking at, it depends how long you've been doing it, because it gets cheaper over time with the amount of pieces that you have to have drilled, repaired, tested, but you're probably looking at, £5 a piece to start with, just to get hallmarked. That includes like postage to and from the assay office and things like that. It's a lot, and that's a big barrier, and there's all the extra admin burden of that, and yeah, it's just not fun. The third thing which I found out, which is not quite as scary in terms of law as hallmarking, but still can be punishable by quite hefty fines, is weights and measures. So in the UK, measures, there we go. In the UK, if you sell something by weight, so like here with these are 100-gram bars or ounces even for silver, theoretically, trading standards require you to have trading standards approved scales that you can then use to demonstrate that you are selling something accurately by weight. Now, there's an element here of, you don't necessarily have to buy these, but the scales which I've bought were £250, just for a pair of weighing scales, just to have them accurately calibrated. In theory, you should have them recalibrated every year, which is around £50 a year, depending on the scales and their complexity, but that's not required by law. Interestingly, if you are sort of starting up as a small business like this and you're looking at getting these kind of things covered, that one you can probably get by, this is not advice by the way, this is just what I've kind of understood from talking with all the companies that supply these. You can probably get away with having some very accurate scales which you've bought off the shelf, and if somebody ever was to kind of report you to trading standards, you can demonstrate to them that you're using a piece of equipment which is suitable to the task. If you're basically just doing something on some kitchen scales, then that's not necessarily going to be suitable for very minute weight details. But it's that kind of mentality. You can get by with regular scales, but it's again questionable. And my advice to you guys would be to just get a proper set of weights and scales. Then the next barrier comes to is basically selling. Selling is hard. Selling is hard on in any kind of precious metal forum, especially with silver, because silver has VAT in Europe, and even if you get it from places like the European Mint, you're going to be looking at a minimum of plus 15% over spot for raw materials, and then you've got, of course, all of the other. Here we go, 5 upfront costs to start. You've got all of these upfront costs to start. It is not easy at all. And then, of course, the last thing, and I'm sorry guys, I'm going to have to wrap this video up in the next 3 minutes because I am running out of memory space on my memory card, is the VAT registration. And I'll finish with this last point. So the VAT registration, and this kind of summarises the whole video together based on my experiences and then looking at all of these barriers. So if you can overcome all of these barriers and you get to number 6 and you get to the point where your business has become successful, you have to contend with the VAT registration side of things, and it is an absolute killer. I have the utmost respect and sympathy for any small business owner out there who creates a product, who creates a business, and then gets to the point where they need to register for VAT. That can be exciting, it can be wonderful, but it's also incredibly stressful. And the amount of extra energy, effort, time, expense for accountants, expense in your own time put to one side to run that or do it yourself is monumental beyond belief, and it shouldn't be like that. It's too much, it's too hard, and I sincerely hope that someday in the near future, with us leaving the European Union, and this is one of the really good things about Brexit, is that we will have autonomy once again over this stuff, over VAT, and we may see breaks on the registration limit for small businesses. We may well see VAT be replaced with a different system altogether that hopefully will be a lot easier to do. Now, the last point I want to make is that there's a misnomer, there's a sort of a different kind of view on VAT from government, and it's something that I now feel extremely strongly about. When I was registering for VAT, I did so much research about it and learning all about what it is. And it is billed on HMRC's website as a tax on consumers. It's a tax for the individual that pays it, tax for the customers. It's not. That is a complete and utter lie. It is a tax on business. It's a success tax. That is what I'm going to call it. It is the government saying, well done, your business is really, really going very well indeed. I want to have 20% of what you're doing. I already pay income tax on all of my profits. I'm very, very transparent with HMRC about that. I don't pad the books. I don't do, I submit my books to HMRC. I don't have to each year, but I do it because I worry about being audited. I am very, very transparent with it. And for HMRC, for the government to then slap VAT on top of everything for all of these people, businesses which are struggling out there, is just appalling. And if you are a business that's selling something and you're not VAT registered, that's the market price that somebody pays for it. If somebody pays, £120 for something, you get the £120 for your product. That's great. But if you're VAT registered, you only get £100 for your product. So the government is pocketing it. That's the market rate. If you up your price from 120 to £44 with the 20% extra, then they don't, they just, customers won't buy it. It's too expensive. So yeah. Anyway, look, I'm running out of memory card space. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please stick a thumbs up on this video and share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful for everything that we do. Otherwise, have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you one and all for watching. Thank you as well for all of the support. We really do appreciate it. And as I always say at the end of my videos, I hope you have a fantastic week. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.